Well, hey, everybody. Hold on, let me try to center myself better. There we go. That looks better. I've shaved since the last time you all have seen me. I had to do some makeup for a video that we've got coming out for Halloween, and now my beard is gone. So we're gonna all have to deal with that together. Hello, Master Jedi and Conspiracy Buff. So today we're going through chapters 5 and 6 of Harley Quinn Mad Love. The first couple chapters, just as a refresher for anyone who's here who wasn't here the last couple times, dealt with Harley as a child, and her dynamic with her parents and family life, and her dad's criminality, her distrust for cops as a result of that, etc., etc., etc. I have a salad with me today. I've been trying to stop eating so many frozen lunches and just going more for fresh produce. But yeah, so it dealt with. Oh, for sure, it is a surreal thing. I'm still trying to get used to it, especially since I'm not at the weight that I want to be right now, and so my face is a little chubby. But. But we dealt with her being a kid, her distrust for cops, her dad being a criminal, etc., etc. Today we're taking it a little bit. I'm trying to. It's telling me it's not recognizing the device, but it's showing that it's moving on my thing, so I don't know what's going on. But today we're moving forward in time by about a decade. 17-year-old Harley Quinn, now in college, and I'm not sure if it's. I don't care about premium. I don't know if it's this chapter or the next chapter, but she will be working for Star Labs as well. Let me try to remember where the full screen is. There it is. And we'll be doing notes probably if there's like page breaks in the chapters or anything, in case I forget anything by the end of the chapter. I feel like that was zoomed in a little too far. Now it's zoomed out a little too not close enough. Let me see if I can get it to fit to page. There we go. And that's better. So let's go ahead. Let's hop into it. You guys can, chat amongst yourselves. Chat about, what's going on in the book. And I will hop back and forth into that between sections. I wish I had multiple screens. That way I could have chat pulled up on one and have the book pulled up on another. But I don't have that set up right now. Maybe after I buy James's computer from him in a little bit. But yeah, let's just hop on in. Today, 17-year-old Harleen Quinzel was exactly where she wanted to be. In the zone. AutoZone. She was so much in the zone, she felt as if she were glowing. Good thing this was it. Today was the day. The gymnastics lessons her mother had scrimped and saved to give her. The hours she had spent training and practicing, pushing herself and never settling for good enough. All the studying, developing her mind as well as her body, never blowing off her schoolwork to hang out at the mall. And today was the day it all came together. Just the way she planned. Just like her mother had said it would. Her mother had been so sure. Sometimes she had even been sure than Harleen herself. Been sure than Harleen herself was. Okay, got it. The way her mother believed in her, it was like she'd already seen proof. Like she knew for a fact that Harleen was going to get the gymnastics scholarship to college. Full ride, 4 years. No doubt that was why her mother didn't feel the need to be here, Harleen thought. She scanned the people in the bleachers, anyway. But she hadn't been there when Harleen had looked 30 seconds ago. She still wouldn't be there 30 seconds from now. But all of Harleen's friends were. That was something at least. Next up, said the voice of the gymnasium loudspeaker, Harleen Quinzel! Her friends cheered loudly, waving at her, calling out, Go, Harleen, go! You got this, girl! Harleen stood and walked gracefully to the corner of the spring floor. She gave her friends a nod to show she was glad they were there. Still, no mom. No dad either, but he was months away from parole. He'd probably get it too. He'd been a model prisoner. If only he'd been a model citizen, he wouldn't have been in there in the first place, and both her parents would be here today. Dream on. That was somebody else's life, not hers, never hers. She was on her own, and she should be used to that by now. Harleen raised her arms, and her music began. Sherazade by Rimsky-Korsakov. She felt her heart lift, and she took flight. 2 full tumbles, one after another, then an aerial cartwheel. She stood for a fraction of a second, facing away from everyone before she bent gracefully backwards and went into a handstand. She held it for a few seconds, then folded herself in half, keeping her legs perfectly straight in a V shape as she swept them just a few inches off the floor. She held it for a few seconds without touching down, then went back into a handstand, followed by a walkover. Then she went flying across the floor again, flinging herself into a pike, a split, and a straddle in a rapid succession before rolling into a pose with her chest on the floor and the rest of her body bent up and over. Her pointed toes barely touching her head. Her legs flowed forward into another back bend as she let the music carry her up into 3 aerial cartwheels, hitting the floor progressively harder on each one to build up enough lift for the double twist. She heard everyone in the gym gasp as she came down perfectly, finishing without a wobble. The applause was heartier this time, and it wasn't only from her friends. Harleen felt her throat tighten. Don't cry, no tears, she thought, as she walked gracefully back to her seat. She had told herself she wouldn't look at her scores until she sat down again, but just as she reached the chair, she heard her friends scream and the rest of the audience break into wild applause, and she couldn't help herself. Harleen felt her jaw drop. Every judge had given her a 10, every single one of them. Even that old stick in the mud, Anna Carrera. And getting a 7 from her was like a 9.5 from anyone else. But even she had given Harleen a 10, making it a perfect score. Her friends were still screaming and whistling. Everyone in the bleachers was smiling and cheering for her. And her mother still wasn't there. Malinka Zerka! Little star, you did it! Harleen's coach, Liliana Lewanchuk, hugged her tightly and gave her a loud smacking kiss on each cheek. Liliana's eyes were bright with happy tears. She looked at Harleen with so much affection that Harleen had to look away. Liliana didn't notice. She was already hugging Harleen again, squeezing her tightly. Let me flip the page for y'all. Well, we're not there yet. There we are. I can't breathe, Harleen said, laughing to cover how awkward she felt. Liliana let go of her for all of a second, then immediately hugged her again. Okay, this is a pretty short chapter, so I'm just gonna read on through rather than taking notes at that page break. But I am gonna get a little bit more of my salad, and y'all are just gonna have to deal with that. Because that's what happens when we schedule these things at lunchtime. Of course you did, said her mother when Harleen told her she'd gotten the gymnastics scholarship. I knew you would. I never doubted it for a second. They were sitting on the shabby sofa in the employee lounge at the cafe where her mother worked her second job, waiting tables. Arlene had to wait 10 minutes before her mother could get a break. It was only part-time, 30 hours a week. So was the job at the charity clinic. The clinic didn't have the budget to put her on full-time. 2 part-time jobs added up to 60 hours a week. Time and a half at a regular rate. Her mother was a real bargain. That is the downfalls of capitalism. Harley knew she wasn't being fair, but she couldn't help feeling angry that her mother hadn't told her boss that just this one time she needed a couple of hours for her daughter's important gymnastics competition. She'd missed all the others, but this one she had to be there for. Just this one time, and she'd never ask again, because this was Harlene's last high school competition ever. She told her mother all about it. Only there wasn't much to tell. Seeing as how her mother knew all along that she'd come out with the top score and the scholarship. Somehow that made the post-competition letdown even worse. "I'm glad you knew it," Harlene said. "I didn't." Her mother laughed. "Well, I didn't," Harlene insisted. Her mother laughed harder. Harlene went into tough Brooklyn cookie mode. "So I guess it's true what they say. Mudda knows best, right? You knew it all along, so you didn't have to bother showing up, did you? 'Cause you already knew, right?" Her mother's laughter cut off instantly as her expression went cold and stony. "Yeah, I was having so much fun here serving crappy coffee for quarter tips that I couldn't tear myself away to watch you do your gymnastics thing." "My gymnastics thing is going to put me through college," Harlene said, "not you." Her mother's hardened expression intensified. "No, not me. Just because I paid for all those gymnastics lessons, went without so you could have the best trainer, whose house I cleaned to make up the shortfall when there wasn't enough money, that doesn't mean I contributed to your going to college at all. The only thing I can do is make sure you and your brothers get enough to eat and keep a roof over your head. And in my spare time, I chillax by visiting your father in the pen, by myself. Not because I don't want to take you with me, but because your father asked me not to, because he doesn't want you to see him like that. My life is such a whirlwind of fun and games that occasionally I have to let something go by. Suck it up, Buttercup." Pause. "And don't talk like that. People will think you're a ditz." "The more fool them, because I'm not," Harlene said. "I just don't understand all the things you've done, all the trouble you've faced, that we faced together. And you can't tell your boss you want a couple hours off to watch your daughter's gymnastics competition. Why? Just tell me that at least." Her mother's expression didn't change. "Because I'm not allowed to bring a giant hammer to work." Harlene gaped at her, shocked. "Is that supposed to be some kind of joke?" Her mother gave her a sidelong look. "Do you hear anyone laughing?" For those of you who missed out last time, Harley was more or less intercepted by some really bad dudes that her dad had worked with at one point, and they were going to try to content warning here, in case sexual depravity is something that sets you off a little bit. But Harlene was captured by these dudes as a child, and they were trying to pawn her off into what is it? Sex slavery, sex trade, like whatever the proper word is for it, and well, why is it taking so long to load the spreadsheet? But oh, it said I lost connection for a second. Did I lose connection with you guys? I don't know. But yeah, so they were trying to pawn her off into that kind of life. Her mom showed up kind of last second, and this was all happening on a carnival fairgrounds setting, and Harlene ended up getting to beat the shit out of them with the strongman hammer, which I'm sure is the beginnings of the hammer that she ends up getting later on as Harley. But so her mom just now, I assume, was kind of referencing that and saying, like, I don't get to, beat the shit out of my problems. I don't know why the spreadsheet's not loading. Let me see if I can get it to load in a different. Oh, wait. Now it says it's working. Now it's. Oh, where'd it go? Oh my god. The spreadsheet might not want me to take notes today. I might have to go back and do that later. Sup, Maddie? Not much. Reading this book, eating a salad. Yo. Redeemed highlight my message for 100. I guess is that bits? Is that what the currency is? Hey, Maddie, Critters is the best. Absolutely. I absolutely love Critters. Thank you for this 100, whatever that is. I guess it's bits. We're still figuring out all the Twitch lingo. Wait, is this Harley Quinn in the animated or another version? So this is all based off of. I'm gonna try to reload the the spreadsheet. This is all more or less based off of the Mad Love comic, the Mad Love cartoon episode that dives into Harley's backstory and everything. And those things are DCAU and or DCAU adjacent, depending on necessarily the comic doesn't fit canon, while the TV show does. So this book is an extension of that. So in a way, yes, it's the animated version, but there's also things so far going on in this book that's like kind of weird, like the technology that's around when Harley was like 7 years old or whatever doesn't seem to match up with what we know about the DCAU world. So it's that's a bit iffy. Why is it not loading the spreadsheet? Because everything's going fine on the stream. I moved so much stuff off my computer last night so that stuff would like run smoothly, and now it's just like, nope, not loading your spreadsheet. Sorry, dude. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to do the notes later. But yeah, so it's kind of the animated version, but it seems to kind of veer off just a little bit at points. Hey guys, yay, 0 lag this week. Yeah, I moved literally 40 gigs of stuff off my computer onto an external hard drive to make sure that the lag wasn't all much of an issue. All of this could be avoided if they just picked themselves up by their bootstraps, worked harder, and earned their way to the top like real Americans. Right? I mean, they could have been Jeff Bezos, but they decided that they wanted to be... I don't know. What's the name of somebody that we don't know? Daniel Turkelstein, just some random nobody. Load the spreadsheet. Okay, here's the spreadsheet. It's back. All right, let me finish getting through the chat. Sex trafficking. Yes, yeah. Yes, that is what happened last time. Okay, so chapter 5, we had a couple new additions of characters. We had the musician was mentioned, Rimsky-Korsakov. I don't know if that's a real person, but if it is, then they're going into the pop culture as well. So we got Rimsky-Korsakov. Then we had Anna Carrera. Who was the competition judge. then we had there was one more person. Harleen's coach, Liliana Lewanchuk. Oh, I accidentally have just an empty line there. Oh, well, what the heck? All right, how did I spell that again? Liliana Lewanchuk. All right, locations. We didn't really get any distinct locations. We got like the diner, stuff like that. Objects, there wasn't much mentioned. In-show events, nothing well, maybe not in-show events, but the gymnastics competition from this chapter is briefly seen in the Mad Love comic. Ooh, we gotta wrap that around because that looks ugly. Mentions of time. We had Harleen is 17 years old, and that was mentioned on page 42. And then we had her dad was getting out on parole soon. Right? He was months away from parole. So Slick Nick Quinzel is months away from parole, and that was page 43. Let's see, nothing to put in the concrete section since we don't have any known characters with origin points. Pop culture. Really quick, I need to look up that song, Scheherazade. Okay, it is a real song. Damn, that guy looks like he's having fun blowing that what is that, an oboe? I'm not very versed in classical instruments. Composed in 1888. Okay. Other clues. This was the final gymnastics competition of the season. There we go. That's a clue. And let me clicking the wrong stuff over and over again. Wrap everything in that column. Just wrap them all. Okay, tight. And now that brings us on to chapter 6. Let me pop that up here because we didn't use all the extra lines that I made for us. Let me pop this over here. Hit the next page. Well, there we go. Nothing is canon. Harley is one of the best DCAU characters, but Farmer Brown beats her. He is the best. Absolutely. In all seriousness, though, I'll never understand how anyone can buy into that nonsense when we live in a point in time where Bezos and Musk are gaining tons of money from a pandemic that left millions of people jobless. It's painfully obvious that the system's rigged for the profit of the few, and that it has to be completely reworked in order to make the world better for everyone. Well, I think that a lot of what that is. Let me grab a bite of salad real quick. 2 bites. I think that a lot of what that is that you'll notice that conservative parties like the Republican Party more or less have a specific voter base, like as far as the level of oppression that their base has witnessed in their time. Like LGBT people, people of color. While there are some that do vote conservative, typically don't, right? So you have these people who more or less, at least the older generations that vote conservative, were more well off because they grew up in a time where, it was easier for them to be well off. And so they've kind of in their head said, okay, well, if people aren't well off, then that is a failing of their own. That's not a systemic thing. Like, I got mine, my friends have theirs. Like, why are you homeless? It's because you're just doing life the wrong way. And they pass that mindset down to younger generations, and some of them will, because that's how the system works. Some of them will go on to still do well, whereas others won't. The majority won't, and some of those folks will realize, oh, the system is rigged. Whereas others have, through years of internalizing this through their upbringing, will be like, oh, shit, this is my fault. Like, what am I doing wrong? Or depending on who's in the who's in the halls of powers, that internalized upbringing will be like, oh, it is the more liberal people who are in charge that are ruining things for me, There's always a mental gymnastic competition to score 3 10s on and get a college scholarship like Harleen did. But yeah, that's some politics for some of y'all. But chapter 6. It's two-sided for this stuff. I'm not 100% sure exactly what you mean. That's a very broad thing to say. If you're trying to say that both parties have flaws, absolutely. But I don't think that speaks much towards the point that I was making. But chapter 6. College set Harleen Quinzel free. Going away to college is, for many kids, their first taste of freedom, when they can finally make their own decisions, some good, others unfortunate. But for Harleen Quinzel, it was so much more than a rite of passage. It was like being released from prison after an 18-year sentence. As much as she loved her family, she had chafed under limitations that were unavoidable when one parent had to work 2 jobs to support 4 kids while the other parent was away. Once her brothers were all in school, they didn't need the same degree of attention, but it still felt to Harleen. Okay, got it. But it still fell to Harleen to make sure they had clean clothes, did their homework, ate their vegetables, and stayed out of trouble. It wasn't a whole lot of fun being stand-in mom, but Harleen knew she had to be a good girl and help out. When things were especially hard on her, she reminded herself she had college to look forward to, provided she could get a scholarship. Gymnastics was her ticket out, but only if her grades were equally good. colleges didn't give a full 4-year ride to a C student, or at least not one whose father was doing time in the state pen. Her father had been paroled in time to see her graduate from high school. Both he and her mother had been in the auditorium that day with her brothers. It was the only time she could remember the whole family being present for something other than the reading of a verdict. The freedom of being at Gotham University, it was positively intoxicating. For one thing, she could go by Harley without having to listen to her mother object. Mom wouldn't tolerate Harley. It always had to be Harleen. Harleen was an English name that meant meadow of the hares. Harley was the masculine form. You are neither a boy nor a motorcycle, her mother would tell her in a that's final tone of voice. So Harley's mom isn't cool with trans rights, it would seem. So I gotta dock a point from Harley's mom. You know, she seems like a really good mom, doing a lot of stuff to, you know, make the wheels turn at the Quinzel household. But that's not good motherly advice. If your child, you know, starts to want to explore their gender identity, you should let them. Even if it's something, you know, as small as you know, just saying, hey, like, this is the nickname I want to go by. Whether that has to do with how they perceive their gender, you know, if it's their right to do so, and you know, telling them no on the basis of gendered lines, not the coolest thing you can do. Overall, good mom needs some work. As she got older, Harley came to understand how seldom her mother got anything her way, so she hadn't fought her. But once she was out of the house, she decided there were now 3 kinds of Harley. The masculine form of Harleen, the motorcycle, and the tough Brooklyn cookie with the gymnastics scholarship. Welcome to the New World Order, everyone. Hope you like what I've done with the place. Of course, renaming herself was the easiest part of going to college. Even for someone who had learned to study with 3 noisy brothers bouncing off the walls, or sitting in a laundromat with a dozen women gossiping loudly around her while their kids were tear-assing through the place, or occasionally in an emergency room waiting to find out if Barry or Frankie or Ezzy had a break or sprain after falling off the monkey bars. Barry, Frankie, and Ezzy being her brothers. College was more demanding than anything she had ever faced. It could even be more exhausting than gymnastics. And even with the full scholarship, Harley found she needed a work-study job for incidentals like food, clothing, and those books. Those books not officially required, but strongly recommended by her professors. Star Labs had an animal research facility on campus, and they were only too happy to have a pre-med student. Harley's grades were good, but to her dismay, not great. The first semester of her freshman year, she had been mortified when she got a D on her logic midterm instead of the A or A- she had expected. This, too, was a common experience among freshmen. It was a rude awakening when kids who were ranked in the 99th percentile in high school discovered they didn't measure up quite so well in a setting where everyone else had also been in the 99th percentile. Students who had hardly ever studied found themselves having to hit the books for the first time in their lives. That is my experience of college. I graduated in like the top, like, I think 10 to 20 of my high school class of like hundreds. And then I went to college and it was just like, bro, what the fuck is going on? And then a lot of stuff happened in life and I had to drop out. And I've recently been working on trying to go back and finish that degree. I'm 1 credit away. So hopefully I'll have that next year, early next year sometime. Oh, I need to flip the page. Harley thought about calling her mother. Sharon Quinzel had been through college and med school. She knew what it was like, but she just couldn't. Her mother was still working 2 jobs to pay her father's legal bills, while her father was having trouble getting any kind of legit work. Jobs were so scarce, even a crappy fast food joint paying minimum wage could afford to be picky about who they hired, and they weren't looking for ex-cons. Plus, there were lots of jobs convicted felons weren't allowed to do, no matter how qualified they were. Harley's problems paled in comparison. Calling to tell her mother she was having a hard time keeping up with the reading for her coursework sounded ridiculous, even to her. Like a rich guy telling a homeless person that he'd had a bad day because his show horse pooped in his car elevator. This was what she had signed up for. Harley told herself, and vowed to do better. But like so many students, again, Harley learned this was something more easily vowed than done. She did improve, but not as much as she'd hoped. She decided to talk to her professors. It only made sense. If you had trouble with the subject, you talked to the teacher about it. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, we're going here and we're adding depth to it. Oh no. Which was how Harley Quinzel came to the next rude awakening. The next rude awakening for college students. Unlike teachers in public education, college professors didn't have to care. They didn't even have to pretend to care. College was a choice, not required by law. Anyone who wasn't up to college-level work didn't belong there. The epitome of this attitude was Dr. Eugene Farrow in the psychology department. Among the many classes he taught was statistics in psychology, which Harley had been told was crucial if she planned to go into psychiatry. Harley had studied statistics in high school, but this course was exhausting from day one. When she went to see Dr. Farrow, he gave her a slew of extra assignments, telling her the only way out was through. Good thing I've got a gymnastics scholarship, she told him with a weak laugh. I can just cartwheel through. Dr. Farrow surprised her by bursting into hearty guffaws. When he caught his breath, he told her to cartwheel on back to his office at the same time next week to pick up more work. Harley left with mixed feelings. She seemed to have won over a professor, not known to be sympathetic to students, especially undergrads. But she'd done it by making tons more work for herself, and she'd already been struggling to keep up with what she had before. Her part-time job in the small animal lab began to feel like a refuge. All she had to do was make sure they were fed and watered and their cages were clean. Oh, and sometimes chase down the ferrets that had escaped. Harley was pretty sure the other students working there had been letting them out and playing with them. Gabrielle Matthias had some kind of weird weasel fixation. She and Harley never worked the same hours, which suited Harley just fine. There was something creepy about Gabriella, and it wasn't just the weasel thing. The girl could have been obsessed with unicorns and rainbows, and Harley still would have thought there was something unsettling about her. Harley didn't want to feel that way about her or anyone else. Her own background didn't fit the standard American middle-class mold, but Gabriella was too icky. The only thing Harley found more disturbing than Gabriella was Batman. Growing up in Brooklyn, Harleen hadn't heard much about Batman, but when she enrolled at Gotham State University, she never stopped hearing about him. It was like everybody was tuned to the All Batman channel, or Bat channel, and they never shut it off. She learned more about Batman than she ever wanted to know. Anyone would have thought the guy had cured cancer, ended poverty, and brought about world peace. But as Harley saw it, nothing could have been further from the truth. Batman was a self-appointed crime fighter who took down the worst criminals, but only by being a criminal himself. Vigilantism was against the law, and Batman, whoever he was, had actually made it into a lifestyle with clever accessories. Besides the outfit, complete with cape, mask, and utility belt, he had a special car and a panoply of custom-made equipment, all festooned with bat designs. Obsessive much? But the truly astonishing thing to Harley was that no one in Gotham City seemed to think there was anything weird or abnormal about this, because Batman was a good guy, and everybody knew that good guys weren't weird or abnormal. They weren't criminals. They were on our side. Good guys were okay. And how did everybody know Batman was a good guy? Because everybody said so. If it weren't true, everybody wouldn't say it. Nothing like a little circular logic to keep things lively. When Harley tried to question this, she was brushed off with what was apparently Gotham City's official mantra. You don't understand because you're not from around here. She might have tried to argue more about that, but Gotham's local TV news changed her mind. As outre as Batman was, he had nothing on Gotham's hometown criminals. They all wore crazy costumes as if crime were just a form of cosplay to them. They even went by wacky personas with names like the Riddler or the Penguin or the Joker, whom Harley thought was even freakier than Batman. She had watched the viral video of his being loaded into a van bound for Arkham Asylum after his recapture. By Batman, of course, and wondered if it were real or just a reality show trying to kick things up a notch. No, her friends told her, the tall, skinny guy dressed like a clown's nightmare really did have green hair and a permanent clown white complexion, and he always put on a spectacle when they sent him back to Arkham. The sight of him thrusting his face into the camera and urging people to steal cream pies and hit cops with them made her rethink her position on Batman. The Joker called himself the Clown Prince of Crime, not the Crown, but his humor came with a body count. If this was how the criminal element rolled in Gotham, maybe Batman really was a hero. Harley decided Gotham City had to be a psychiatric gold mine. Okay, that's a page break. Let's there's Jesus, a lot happened there. Okay, so I think like the first thing is that Harley is 18 now, and that's on page 47. And Slick Nick Quinzel was out on parole by the time of Harley's graduation ceremony. Which was also also on page 47. Okay, so there are those. Let's see. We have a couple locations. We've got Gotham University, Gotham City, Star Labs, and Arkham Asylum. Have all been mentioned. As far as pop culture, we got Harley Davidson is referenced on page 48. And then let's see, new characters. I know we got some of those. Was the first one? Yeah, Dr. Farrow. Dr. Eugene Farrow. And then we got Gabriella Matthias. Fun fact about Gabriella. She was introduced in the Harley Loves Joker miniseries, where we first found out, Batman Bruce Wayne, that the two used to work together at Star Labs. But Gabriella also turns to a life of crime after a run-in with not only Emil Dorian, the gentleman who is responsible for Tigress in the episode Tiger, but also Abel Cuvier, who is the man behind splicing in Batman Beyond. And she is spliced with a weasel. It seems that they're setting that up for later in the book, so sorry, spoilers. But she's spliced with a weasel by Emile Dorian and Abel Cuvier, and becomes a character known as the Grayson. So let me put that not necessarily in show events, but in continuity events. And then not canon. I would say that the inclusion of Joker and Riddler during Harley's time in college doesn't really line up. I mean, unless Harley's only 20 rather than 28 by the time of Batman the Animated Series. And I didn't flip the page like I was supposed to. There we go. That's where we're at. Maddie, why don't you guys do commentary on the DCAU episodes or movies? We have. We did Critters, and we did Brainiac Attacks. I think one of the things about that though is that those two didn't do very well. So it's probably not something that we're gonna do on a regular basis ever. But I have pitched an idea to James, kind of reworking that idea in a roundabout way of doing a DCAU abridged series. Where we mainly focus on doing kind of like the Dragon Ball Z abridged or Young Justice abridged stuff, just focusing on episodes that are necessary to end up understanding epilogue by the end of everything, and kind of restructuring restructuring those episodes, doing new scripts and stuff, and kind of tying things closer together, which in a roundabout way would be us adding our commentary to stuff. There's no definitive like that's a thing that's going to actually happen right now. It's just something that I kind of threw out there because I've been watching a lot of Dragon Ball Z, and with that Dragon Ball Z abridged, James kind of liked the idea, but it'll be an uphill battle with the way that Warner Bros. Likes to copyright strike things. It'll be an uphill battle with just like the amount of work that needs to go into it. So not terribly sure that that's something we'll be doing. We need to discuss further and see how we feel about that. But we're also talking about starting a second channel for more long form content. So maybe commentaries would do well over there. We'll have to see. Yeah, you're right. I guess it's just weird to me since I've already gone through the process of distancing myself mentally from my Tory family's teachings with very little trouble for the most part. Like, the UK Parliament just voted to prevent impoverished children from having free school meals during the pandemic, and to me, that's a flat out... Oh, yeah, that is... Oh, that's wild. But yeah, I mean, like, I was when as I've stated, multiple times before, I grew up in a very conservative household. My dad is a right-wing talk show host. And so, like, that stuff was pounded into me from a young age. However, somehow, by the grace of the non-existent God, or whichever, if one does exist, I found punk music at just the right time. American Idiot came out, and Blink-182 was doing their thing, and this, that, and the other. I think this was actually more towards the end of Blink-182, and like Tom was starting to go on to do Angels and Airwaves and all that stuff. And so I found punk music, and I started listening to the messages and all of that, and started questioning, like, hey, why do I believe the things that I believe? So it was the process of starting to distance myself from all of that started happening earlier than it may for others. But like, a lot of the times, if you are raised in those ideals and you fully embrace those ideals, then those ideals will end up working out for you. Not for society as a whole, but for you personally, right? You'll just be like, oh, well, I bootstrapped my way up, and it all works out. That makes me wonder, what would the late 80s / early 90s equivalent of a viral YouTube video be? Oh yeah, I should probably note that. I would think that maybe that would just be something like America's Funniest Videos, right? I mean, you're what, from England, the UK? I don't know specifically what the country is classified as, I guess. So I wouldn't think you'd be familiar with America's Funniest Videos. Maybe you are. Maybe it's something that transcends transcends borders. But essentially, it was a form of a clip show where people take their home videos, they send it into whoever it was that was running the show, NBC or something like that, and then Bob Saget comes out and plays a bunch of guys getting hit in the nuts with rakes and stuff, and we all get a laugh out of it. It was like Tosh.0, but in the late 80s, early 90s. See, I thought it was Penguin, not Riddler, or did I mishear that? They mentioned Penguin and Riddler, right? They said they even went by wacky personas with names like the Riddler or the Penguin or the Joker. Penguin is the only one out of those three that kind of his origin is nebulous still. We have no clue when he started working in Gotham, so it's 100% feasible that he is around while Harley is in college. Excuse me. But the other two, it's a little more iffy. The Joker debuts 7 years before the new Batman Adventures, so that would be around 1992. And the Riddler debuts in 1994, from the math that we've done. So it's a bit iffy that either of them are out and about. Oh fuck yeah, I'm completely on board with the DCAU abridged series. I'll have to talk to James and see if we can set some stuff up with that. I think mainly I think the biggest part of that would be rewriting Batman Beyond feels like it would be a lot of fun now that we have all of this. Like, we know this stuff all happened before Batman Beyond, right? Because now we got Justice League Unlimited, stuff like that. Maddie, is it weird that I'm 12 and like the DCAU? I would say that it's weirder that I'm, 29 and like the DCAU. I've heard about them before, but never really watched them. The closest thing to that I saw was a series about funny animal clips that I loved for a while in my early teens. Yeah, we had some series like that as well, and that kind of stuff would also make its way into America's Funniest Home Videos. But that was basically our version of viral videos at the time. Let's see, we got a couple pages left. So let me go ahead and let me pop back into that. We were right here, Psychiatric Goldmine. Okay. While Harley never gave up trying to do better academically, gymnastics was where she shone most brightly. Liliana Lewinchunk's little star became a great big nova, throwing herself into every competition and coming away with top marks. Harley never again achieved a perfect score like she had that day in her high school gym, but then she never expected to. That had been a once-in-a-lifetime achievement, and something most people would never experience. The only thing that bothered her were the comments about the Olympics. What an incredible talent! She's so brilliant! Too bad she never competed in the Olympics! It rankled Harley, as if all of the years of practice and training, all her ability, all her championships and medals counted for nothing. She herself had no regrets. Every 4 years, she watched another group of little girls on the floor, or the balance beam, or the uneven parallel bars, their faces hard with concentration, showing none of the joy she herself felt when she took flight. And she wasn't sorry she hadn't been one of them. Her mother had never been able to afford an Olympic-class training program, but Harley felt more like she dodged a bullet than missed the boat. What was so great about being washed up in your 20s? She pushed herself as hard in the gym as she did in her classes, not for a medal, but because it felt good. Why did so many people seem to think that you were either an Olympian or you were a zero? It simply wasn't true. But people would believe whatever they chose to, even when evidence to the contrary was staring them right in the face. I feel like that's kind of a good wrap back around to what we were talking about with the more conservative ideals and everything. Harley didn't know why that was, and it gave her one more reason to go into psychiatry, to see if she could find out. As Harley's college education progressed, she became adept at reading people. It was a skill she had inherited from her father. Con men had to be good at reading people and sizing up a situation at short notice. Not that it occurred to Harley to think of it in that way. Harley made use of her gift for people reading, mostly without realizing that what she was doing. And when she did, she associated it with all the psychology she'd learned. Harley found that sometimes it wasn't enough to be a conscientious student. Sometimes engaging emotionally with a subject, whether it was 18th century English literature, 20th century world history, organic chemistry, abnormal psychology, or even principles of physics, could make the professor grade a bit more generously, or even a lot more. Professors found less fault with students who seemed to be personally invested. It was possible to do this with it was impossible to do this with every subject, of course, but it was possible to bluff. You just had to know the right keywords. This was why listening was so important, and Harley was positively adept at that. Being a lovely young woman didn't hurt either. Professors loved having the attention of an attractive young woman, and not just the men. Women enjoyed her company just as much. Harley liked being liked, and it seemed to make her even more likable. She hadn't thought life could ever get this good for someone like her. Oh, once in a while, she got a not so good vibe from a professor and immediately understood they'd have happily traded sex for a grade. After a couple of unfortunate experiences, she learned what signals to watch for and how to stay several steps ahead, steering the situation. She used the term manipulate. Let me flip the page. There we go. Let's see. Steering the situation. Let's see. She used the term manipulate. They required more effort, but she eventually came away with an A without even taking her shoes off, which seemed to confirm the commonly held wisdom that the more attractive a person was, the more they could get away with. Oh, geez. Okay. Awesome, actually. That's so one of the greatest I feel like in modern times, rather than when it came out, one of the greatest criticisms of the original Mad Love comic is that it suggests that Harley got through college by sleeping with her professors, right? And essentially that takes her and diminishes her character from being, you know, a capable, psychiatrist, just a smart woman, and it takes her agency and lowers it to say she's only where she is because of sex, and she's just dumb. She's a dummy, and that's a criticism I've heard levied over and over again. I was expecting when they brought up Dr. Eugene Farrow a little while ago, I was expecting that they would maybe still stick with that and go in a more nuanced way that makes the situation uncomfortable but necessary for Harley to advance. And I like that that they're walking up to the line here and they're not crossing it. They're saying, no, she's good, she's smart, she's not book smart, but she's people smart, and is able to levy that skill to where she doesn't have to exploit herself. Much better version of the material here, I think. Let's see. After exposure to the larger world beyond Brooklyn, Harley came to the conclusion that most people weren't so much bad as they were simply at the mercy of their own weaknesses, which could produce at worst, a whole lot of evil, and at the very least, mediocrity and tedium. And it seemed like so many people let themselves get used to mediocrity and tedium. Instead of living, they just faded, like old photographs. At times, Harley wanted to jump up and down and scream just to interrupt the continuous march toward entropy. Someday, she was going to meet someone larger than life, someone who was all bright colors at maximum volume, who was a lot more than the sum of their weaknesses. She hoped so, anyway. Med school was so challenging that Harley finally gave in and called her mother. Her mother sounded overjoyed to hear from her. Before long, they were chattering and comparing notes. Harley found herself getting to know her mother in a new and deeper way. At the same time, however, Harley made sure she didn't call too often. She was from Brooklyn. She was out. She wasn't going to get sucked back into the old neighborhood and the old life where mob bosses and thugs and fathers going to prison were nothing out of the ordinary. Her mother was concerned about her going into psychiatry. It was a specialty that wasn't quantifiable, in the same way as cardiology or orthopedics. She told Harley, sometimes it was hard to know if you were actually doing a patient any good. Worse, continuous contact with neurotics could take you to a dark place it was hard to escape from. But Harley was determined. The mind was an adventure, and Harley was very much interested in adventure, which brings us to the present. Almost. All right. So we're almost next chapter. Chapter 7 is going to be what looks like the flashback section of Mad Love. And that's a short chapter. So next week we'll be doing chapters 7 and 8. Introducing Joan Leland, Arkham Asylum, all of that fun stuff. There wasn't really a lot more notes to put in from that last little bit. So what do we got going on in the chat real quick before I get out of here? Maddie, what is your favorite movie in the DCAU? Mine is Batman and Harley Quinn. I think you're the first person I think that I've heard say that. I really enjoy Return of the Joker. For how dark and twisted it is, and how it kind of explores and redefines the relationships, not just between Batman and Robin, but between Batman and Terry, and even like the way that Terry approaches the Joker. There's a lot of fun stuff going on there, and Justice League versus the Fatal Five is another just fantastic one with how they deal with minority representation. Having Mr. Terrific and Jessica Cruz as main characters in that, as well as my nose is just itching today, as well as the way that they deal with mental health. It's just a phenomenal movie. I've never been a fan of Harley sleeping around with her professors either. I liked how Harleen handled it a lot though. Yeah, it's definitely a weird thing. And there's I think there are meaningful ways to explore that and the dynamic of the I guess empowerment that could come from it, the exploitative nature of all of that. There's tons of fascinating things that you could do with that premise, but the way that it's handled in the original comic, I think I posted on our Twitter today, so let me do that instead of the drive, because the drive's taking some time. Bing. Twitter's taking its time too. Where are my posts? Where are my posts? Give me the images. Ooh, we got messages. I'm not gonna open those right now. But yeah, like the way they handled it in the Mad Love comic was essentially, just this. Just Harley got a D-. The professor said, "See me," and then she went in and they fucked and she's got an A or an A+, right? You can't do that premise justice in just 3 panels. And as great as this, looks as a piece of art, just as a storytelling device, it's not executed very well. I've actually like come up with the idea, and now that I'm seeing in this book that she doesn't go through with it in this version of the story, I think this idea has a bit more credibility to it, despite the fact that the timeline doesn't line up properly with the book. But I always had the idea that since Harley is supposed to be roughly the same age as Ivy in Batman the Animated Series, as stated by Paul Dini, she'd be around 28 then. So she would have gone into college 10 years ago. What do we know is going on 10 years before Batman the Animated Series? Mask of the Phantasm. What do we see happen in Mask of the Phantasm? Bruce is going to Gotham State University. Andrea says, she's seen him around campus. So, Harley is going to Gotham State University. Bruce is going to Gotham State University. So, in my mind, I always thought it would be fucking hilarious if Bruce, being the rich playboy that he is, tried making a pass and was shot down and was just saying all of this stuff just out of spite, right? Just being like, the fucking slut. She's not even smart. She had to sleep with her teachers to get her grades. And now that we're seeing in the Mad Love book, they're saying that no, she didn't sleep with them. They walked up to that line, but she didn't cross it. I feel like that idea has a little bit more credence to it. Personally, I think that's probably a joke that if we did the abridged series, would end up in there. But that's it's not canon. It's neither here nor there. Oh, also, while I've got this post up from the Twitter, this woman here, holding the ferret. This is Gabrielle Matthias. This is the woman they were talking about. And since they just briefly touched on her, and then the next chapter it looks like we're going to be in the Mad Love flashback, maybe she won't come back. If she does, I don't know specifically how they'll do it, just because of the fact that it would now become not just Mad Love, but also Harley loves Joker, right? Because that's where she's first introduced as the Grayson. Harley didn't know about her beforehand. I mean, maybe they can tie the two stories together, but now that I'm just seeing it was just the one mention, and now we're fast forward. I'm kind of not expecting that. Let's see. JL versus the Fatal Five is my second favorite. It's a good one. Oh, that's amazing. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I threw that idea at James once. I think it was around the time that I think I brought it up around the time we did the Harley and Scarecrow video, where I suggested that maybe she slept with Scarecrow because Scarecrow was a professor in what was it, psychology, something along those lines, whatever her core study is. Professor, he was a professor, so it makes sense to me that he was also teaching while Harley and Bruce were at college. But yeah, it's an idea that I've got, and I like it a lot more than what they did do. It just feels sleazy in the original comic to me. It's just another example of how Harley gets weirdly over-sexualized. Yeah. I mean, sadly, that's a lot of Paul Dini's writing. I feel like is he enjoys adding in female characters, right? We got Nora because of him. We got Harley because of him. We got Roxy Rocket because of him. I think he might have even been responsible for Livewire as well. And Baby Doll, right? But out of all of those, the only one who doesn't really, the only one who's a very, a decently fleshed out character that's not, just thrown to, female character tropes of over sexualization or something along those lines is Baby Doll, or Nora is fridged, Harley is over sexualized, Roxy Rocket is over sexualized, Livewire is just a fucking mouthy broad, so it's he can write female characters, but so often just falls into those tropes. That's my biggest upset about Batman: The Adventures Continues. Still, like, the continuity aspect, be damned. But what he did to Nora was just bullshit, right? Like, we had all of this new material that gave her agency. The way that I was reading up on some forum posts by people who worked on Batman Adventures Volume 2, and one of the last stories in that is the Nora Freeze story, where her and Victor are finally reunited, only for like Victor's head to end up lost in the Arctic. And I was reading what he was saying about that, and the author basically said, we've known ever since the 90s, at this point it was 2003. We've known ever since the 90s, for about a decade or so, that Victor loves Nora. But we know nothing about Nora. We don't know who she is as a person. And the author was saying that since he was writing a Freeze story, it only felt appropriate to show why Victor loved Nora, to explore Nora in as much depth as he could in like the 18 pages he had, and say this is who she is as a person. And then Paul Dini comes around, all these years later, after we've seen interviews with him and Bruce Timm saying like, yeah, I don't like that they brought Nora back to life. Like, Nora was always supposed to be dead, blah, blah, blah. And Paul's like, this is finally my chance to kill Nora again. When like, no, you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to do that. See, don't judge me. Harley is hot. Yes, Harley is hot. But here is the thing, is that Harley is hot because she is drawn by people who want her to be hot, right? She's created by people who said, hey, this character needs to be eye candy, right? And the character doesn't exist in reality, right? The character exists as the result of decisions made by real people. And that's basically what we're getting at, is that Harley, like, the sexualization of Harley Quinn. Like, you can make attractive characters, but and not overly sexualize them, right? Just like in real life, there are attractive people everywhere. Everywhere you look, there are attractive people everywhere. But you don't have to, like, open your mouth and say, hey, you're hot, show boob, like that's it's okay to find people attractive. It's not okay to treat them as a sexual object. And when you create these characters with over sexualization and don't explore like the concept past, like, yeah, they fuck, like it can get to a point where you're just like, okay, man, but like all you're doing is just telling a large audience that you're horny and you want us to be horny with you, and it's weird. It gets to a point where it's weird, right? Like there's you can do sexual stuff and just be like, yeah, whatever. Like, if that's the point of it, then that's the point of it. You can do stuff for sexual empowerment. You can do stuff to explore like power dynamics with sex and everything. But like just being like, haha, they fuck. Like, it's like, that's whatever. Let's see. I get the feeling that he'd sexualize her at some point if she didn't look like a goddamn child. Yeah, a baby doll. Yeah, maybe. I remember. I remember, like, when I was younger, rewatching Batman the Animated Series for the first time, like after having bought the DVD sets. That I was just like, you know what? Something strikes me as odd that we're doing a grown woman trapped in a child. story. But like as you know, as I've matured, that aspect doesn't strike me as quite as odd anymore. And that's one of the best episodes of the series. What used to feel weird to me, like I now look at it in a different light, and I'm like, no, this is brilliant. This is fantastic. This is a story, an impactful story in the 90s that discusses like not even just a fall from like social class, but also body dysmorphia. And because of that, like that's a really impactful story to me. But all that being said, I've been here for like 25 minutes over time. You know, we've been having fun. We've been chatting. We've been talking some stuff. But I've got plans to go out on a bike ride, so I gotta go ahead, start getting myself together to go do that. So I'm signing off. As usual. For those of you who don't know me personally online, you can follow me on Twitter at Matty Washburn. You can follow me on Instagram at Executive Producer Dick Wolf. Of course, all of the Watchtower database social media, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Twitch that you're on right now is at DCAU Watchtower. On Facebook, we're Watchtower Database. Hold on. Danny said one last thing, so let me read that out before I hop out. The thing that makes Harley's sexualization so much worse to me is how she's meant to have complex psychological issues, and how an uncomfortably large amount of people intertwine that with her sexuality to lust over how damaged she is, and it just gets really gross really fast. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah, there is a sect of people who fetishize mental illness, and it's very strange. I'm kind of I'm kind of like hedging like what I want to share or not share, but that's it's weird trying to like tell personal stories, I guess, and then be like, wait, they're personal to me, but they also involve other people. Like, okay, discuss. So I won't go too far into that. But yeah, the fetishization of mental disorders and stuff is definitely a very weird thing that does happen. But yeah, like I said, I'm on Twitter at Matty Washburn, on Instagram at Executive Producer Dick Wolf. Watchtower Database is on Instagram and Twitter as at DCAU Watchtower. On Facebook, we're just Watchtower Database. Next Tuesday, James will be back with another issue of Justice League Adventures at noon Pacific time. On Wednesday, Ted is doing what you call it. I think he's still doing Chaos in Gotham City for the Game Boy Color. Same time, noon o'clock. I'll be back with the next 2 chapters of Mad Love Thursday, same time. And we have our new our latest Batman: The Adventures Continues breakdown video is coming this Sunday. I've already recorded, like I was saying earlier, I've already recorded our Halloween video. I think that's the next one after this Batman: The Adventures Continues. So keep an eye out for all of that fun stuff. I'm gonna go ahead, finish my salad, get myself together and go on a bike ride. I love y'all. It's always fun talking with you. And I will see you around the internet and or next week. Y'all take care and have a good day.